I've had my hands on the PS5 Pro for a good bit now, thanks to PlayStation sending me a review unit to check out. In that time, I've just been diving into a whole bunch of different games, trying out their different graphical settings, doing some comparisons, and in today's video, I really would just want to do a general overall look at what the PS5 Pro really has to offer to most people, which is, I think, actually more than a lot of people realize, but it's still targeted at a very specific audience. And the three main ways that it really offers an enhancement is obviously those games that have a PS5 Pro specific patch, but also those games that do not have a specific patch but can still leverage the extra power the system has to offer. And then a third thing that was a bit of a surprise to me that I didn't know about until I started using the system, PS4 Image Enhancement. Before diving into that, I do want to touch on a couple just general things about the system I think are worth knowing, including the fact that not only does it have more power, but it does also have a higher storage capacity than the currently available PS5 at 2 terabytes rather than 1. You still, of course, also have the expansion base. You can add your own SSD, which is exactly what I did, ripping it out of my last PS5, now giving me a total of 4 terabytes to work with. And also, while the covers for the system are not the exact same as the current slimmer PS5, the bottom ones are, which the important distinction there is that means you can reuse the disk drive from the current PS5. So you don't necessarily have to go out and buy a dedicated disk drive just for the Pro. If you have the current slimmer PS5 model with a disk drive, you can rip that one out and put it on your Pro, which is exactly what I did. The inability to use the covers from the current system is a bit of a bummer, especially if you currently have that system and you really like one of the colors that has already been released and you already bought them, and now you might actually have to re-buy them if they release them again for the Pro. It's a bit of a headache, but the important part functionally is that at least the disk drive works the same. You just also have to buy that separately or grab it from your other system if you have it. Now, getting back to how it runs games, the first thing I want to focus on is those games that have PS5 Pro specific patches, because that is, after all, really the main sales pitch for the system, right? There's other things it has to offer. Great, it has more storage. Cool, it has ways of enhancing some other games. But ultimately, the main sales pitch is, hey, these specific games are going to be able to do extra cool stuff they can't do on the regular PS5. And what's interesting about the 5 Pro compared to its predecessor, the PS4 Pro, is that with the 4 Pro, there was sort of a baseline assumption of what you were getting. 4K support, because the regular PS4 couldn't do 4K. With the 5 Pro, it's a little more freeform. There's more power in the system compared to others, and PlayStation has introduced some other enhancements like their new upscaling tech PSSR, but it's ultimately up to devs how they want to leverage this power and what Pro patches actually do. Now, what does seem to be the most common approach right now is a best of both worlds fidelity performance mode. Having a version of the game where you get the visuals of its fidelity mode like it would be on the PS5, but not at a capped 30 frames, but instead hitting a nice smooth 60. And there are some games where this is the one update. For instance, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. When running that on a PS5 Pro, you'll notice that you have one more graphical setting option than normally available. There are the 2 performance modes, the 1 fidelity mode, and a new mode called Versatility. And what Versatility is doing is basically just offering the best version of all those other modes combined. If you played this game's performance mode, you'll know that while you did get a nice smooth frame rate, it did result in a very blurry looking image that I personally chose to stick with because I like having smooth motion more than crisp details. But yeah, it was pretty noticeably blurry compared to the fidelity mode, and with this Pro Versatility mode, you're now getting the best version of all those at the same time. And this is a graphical approach that a lot of games are running with, but some are choosing to take a step further and do some things on top of that. For instance, Horizon Forbidden West is a game that offers a Performance Pro mode, which is the same concept, fidelity visuals with performance frame rate. But on top of that is also offering a Fidelity Pro mode, where you're still getting capped at 30 frames, but it's taking advantage of even more visual effects, it's having more advanced ray tracing, it is just an overall better looking version of the game, just still at a 30 frame cap. And on top of that, if you happen to have a 120Hz TV, it also has a Balanced Pro mode, which is giving you a bit better visuals performance mode, not as good as Fidelity Pro, but targeting 40 frames per second, which is honestly a very happy middle if you have a TV that has the refresh rate to support it. And there's even more ways than this that games can take advantage. I think one of the most interesting ones actually, well, not really a genre or game I'm personally into, F1 from EA is a great showcase of some other ways that the Pro enhancements can be taken advantage of. This game does offer a performance mode where you're getting 120 frames and then still getting the fidelity of the regular PS5 mode, mode, but on top of that, it's offering an enhanced fidelity mode that has way better ray tracing than the regular version of the game normally offers, so that is exclusive to the PS5 Pro. And on top of that is also even offering an 8K mode, something that I haven't really been able to test at home because I don't have an 8K TV, but when I did the PS5 Pro preview event, that was there and was something I was able to check out. Worth noting that this is not native 8K, it's not like the system is that much more powerful it's able to do that, but it's leveraging PSSR in a way to hit an 8K image that looks even more crisp than 4K is capable of, assuming you have an 8K TV that's large enough to really appreciate it. Now, obviously, there are a whole lot more games that we can talk about that have Pro-specific patches. Ratchet & Clank, Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the Demon's Souls remake, all kinds of titles are getting Pro-specific enhancements. But I think this does kind of sum up the basic idea that no two games are really leveraging tech the exact same way. And if there is a basic assumption of what a Pro mode is offering you, it is again that concept of best of both worlds, fidelity and performance compared to the regular PS5 version. Now the thing is, when it comes to games that get PS5 Pro patches, it's specific games getting PS5 Pro patches, which is a pretty limited list at the end of the day, even if you do end up picking up most of the titles that are on it. What is interesting though is that there are other games that, despite not getting a specific patch, can still benefit from the Pro's enhanced power. In particular, if there are games that, let's say, have a performance mode that struggles to hit its 60 frame target, it bounces around a little bit, or it's just always struggling hovering right below it, well, the Pro is going to have that extra push necessary to make sure it does that. The game that I immediately thought of and wanted to check this out with was Final Fantasy XVI, which, while the performance mode does run better than it did right back at launch, it never has really been able to achieve a smooth constant 60 on PS5. And with playing it on the Pro, it still wasn't able to hit a flawless 60 during very hectic scenes, but did cling a lot closer to it than the original did. There is no specific Pro patch that's unlocking this, it's just the fact that it's a more powerful system that it's able to handle the demand that the game is bringing. It's also worth noting the reverse of this can also be true if there is a game that is taking advantage of dynamic resolution scaling, where the resolution dips down in order to preserve frame rate. Well, because of the Pro's enhanced power, it's more than likely not going to need to dip nearly as low as it would on a regular PS5. Now, the thing about these types of games is there's not really an official list you can look at, right? These are games that don't actually have specific Pro enhancements, but are just titles that have always struggled to hit their exact target on the regular system. And if you've had experience playing a game like that, if there's something you've enjoyed and you know that the frame rate just ends up being a little spotty or performance dips at certain parts, well, the Pro is likely going to help balance that out. Now, the other way the PS5 Pro can enhance games, and this is again something that was a surprise to me, PS4 Image Enhancement. This is an option inside the settings menu for the PS5 Pro that is a little bit vague in its description. It basically references the fact that it offers image enhancement for PS4 games, allowing it to improve the quality of the gameplay experience. For checking this out, I chose to focus on first-party PS4 games that never got a PS5 version, in particular God of War 2018, Infamous Second Son, and then, of course, Bloodborne, a game that didn't even ever get a PS4 Pro mode. So I was curious to see how these games would benefit from this PS4 image enhancement, and the answer is pretty minutely. So minute, in fact, that even showing some of the gameplay back-to-back here in this video, I don't trust YouTube compression enough to just squash whatever differences you might be able to notice on a large enough screen. We're talking about really getting in there and looking at fine details and trying to find a little bit of extra crispness and clarity where you can, to the point where, yes, there is an enhancement. I have come to the conclusion that there are benefits to running it in this mode, but they are so small, so specific. I struggle to think that most people playing in a regular living room style setup would ever be able to notice it. It's entirely possible that the benefits of this option vary wildly from game to game, and I just happen to check out the handful that aren't really leveraging it the right way. But at least in the cases that I've been able to try out so far, the benefits are ever so tiny. So after having checked out the ways in which the 5 Pro can enhance these games, where are we sitting as far as how worth it is it to get one versus the regular system? Or even more of a headache, is it worth grabbing one if you've already invested in a regular PS5? And the thing is, this is a question where the value of what the PS5 Pro brings to the table really is going to vary from person to person, right? If you are perfectly happy playing on a small screen from a distance and you just like having your fun with how games play, awesome. The Pro really isn't for you. If you're the type where you've invested in the largest, fanciest TV possible and you are looking to see the most fidelity and returns power-wise the system has to offer, then yeah, the Pro is going to be a little bit more of interest to you. I will say, in terms of, spending $500 on a regular PS5 versus spending $200 extra to get the Pro, I honestly think it is actually kind of tempting, partially because of the fact that not only is it a more powerful system, but it does have double the storage, which that saves you having to buy an SSD in the first place to expand the storage later down the line if you end up installing a lot of games. And while the exact benefits of the system do vary quite a bit from game to game, ultimately, especially if you're focused on just using a console and you're not interested in PC gaming, this is going to be offering the best visual options possible in that space. Also keep in mind that if you care about physical games, which a lot of people still do, the base version of the system doesn't have a disk drive. That is not included in the price tag, so if that is something you care about and you don't already have a current system you're upgrading from to bring that over with, that's an extra $80 you're going to be out of, bringing the total price tag closer to $800. Now, speaking of bringing over from a system you already have, is it worth grabbing one of these if you already have a PS5? And that is, again, it really just comes down to you. I mean, that is honestly such a high asking price for playing the games you already can play a little bit prettier. It really just comes down to how much you personally value getting that kind of performance boost. I will say, with perfect honesty, in my own case, I'm very happy to have access to this Pro. I'm very much enjoying the way games look and play on it, and it's absolutely going to be my main system moving forward as far as the PS5 goes. But if I weren't doing what I do and I was just interested in having a PS5 to play games, yeah, I probably wouldn't upgrade at this point. I personally just don't care about those things as much and ultimately just want to focus on how fun the game itself is. It's very, very shiny. You just have to care about that kind of shiny to make the price point really feel worth it, I think. So those are my thoughts on the PS5 Pro. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know. And until next time, I will see you all later.